Shalom, my friends. Welcome to this week's video. I say that because this is not the typical word study that I usually do. This time, I'm calling it Up Close and Personal with Alan because I just want to open up and talk to you. People, I've been saying for a long time, pitch your tent with Elohim. And people ask me quite frequently, what does that mean? How do we pitch our tent? So, going to take some time with you today. We're going to fellowship and talk about how we pitch our tents with Elohim and how he pitches his tent with us. Now first, I want to look at Ephesians chapter 2, verse 8, where, it says, "For it's by grace or favor that you are saved, through faith or belief. And this is not of your own doing. It came not through your own works, but it is the gift of Elohim." Now, when it says it is by grace or favor that we are saved, really it is by Elohim pitching his tent with us and us pitching our tent with him that we are saved. And rather than that happening through faith or belief, really what the word is saying is that happens through our being washed by and growing in his word. So we are saved by pitching our tent with Elohim through being washed by and growing in his word. And this is not of our own doing. It came not through our own works, but it is a gift, the gift of Elohim. This is not of our own doing. In other words, you are not going to get him to pitch his tent with you. There's nothing that you do that, including, being washed by and growing in his word. That's not something that we can do ourselves either. We get into his word. Very important that this is coupled with a dedicated prayer life. Abba, I always say Abba, Father, and I'll explain that in a bit too. But Abba wants to be first in all things. And as you've heard me say, make Elohim number one on a list of one. So you got a list of all the most important things in your life. There should only be one thing on that list, Elohim, and he is number one on that list of one. Making him first. And only, really. But he wants to be first and most important in our lives. So to put him first, when you get up in the morning, after you wake, the first thing you want to do is lift up your hands and praise him, thank him for this day, and ask him to reveal himself, his beloved Son, Yeshua, and his indwelling Ruach HaKodesh to you this day. And you might ask him, Abba, Father, teach me how you pitch your tent with me, and teach me how I'm to pitch my tent with you this day. And then, if you've never done that before, the first time you do it, and really, every time you do it, but especially the first few times, you will see that you had a different day than usual. You'll see that it does make a difference. Now, I mentioned Abba, Father. Shaul, Paul. The Ruach, through Paul, mentioned that we cry out to Abba, Father. Abba is spelled A-B-B-A, Abba. And really, it's spelled Aleph, Beit, Beit, Aleph. Aleph points at the Father and being yoked to him. Beit is all about a house and a family. So really, Abba is saying, Father of this house of the Father. So when you cry out, Abba, Abba is a very affectionate, endearing term, very personal, and it's kind of like, daddy. But really, Abba is saying, Father of this house, and this house is of the Father. You're crying out to your daddy. Now, back to Ephesians, it says that we're saved by grace. Sometimes it says favor, but these are English words. They're westernized, and they are abstract ideas. What is grace? What is favor? No, the Aramaic Hebrew word there is, in the original word, is chen. And the root word for chen is chana, which is the Aramaic Hebrew word that speaks specifically of pitching a tent. John, his name is actually Yochanan. It means he who pitches his tent. Yochanan. Chana means pitching a tent. In the book of John, Yochanan, chapter 1, verse 14, it reads, the Word became flesh, and some versions say dwelt among us. The HalleluYah Scriptures, I applaud them greatly for this one, because there you'll read, the Word, that's Yeshua, became flesh and pitched his tent among us. He pitched his tent among us. He became flesh and pitched his tent among us. Well, what does that mean? He lived among us. He walked with us. So if we are to pitch our tent with Elohim, and Elohim is referring to the Father and the Son and his Ruach indwelling. So to pitch our tent with him means that we live with him. We walk with him. From the time I get up in the morning until the time I go to bed at night, and probably in between there as well, I am with Elohim. I walk with him. It's as though he's there with me all the time. I'm always talking to him. I'm always considering how he feels about anything I'm doing. It's as though I'm walking with him and living with him, pitching my tent with him. Pitching a tent is something that the Hebrews did every day. They pitched their tent. They set their tent up. With us, I don't know, for some reason, I think about making a bed. You make your bed every day. It's something that you do every day. You straighten things out. You do this, that, and the other thing. If you're pitching your tent, you have to get the pole up straight, and you go outside and you have to put the tent peg War, war, pitch your tent. You have to put those tent pegs in the ground, and then you tie a rope to the tent, and you pull the tent snug here and wrap it around the tent peg and grab the rope on the other side. You know, you have to do all these things with Elohim. So, in other words, everything you do all day is pitching your tent. It said Yeshua became flesh and pitched his tent among us. He lived among us. He walked, he worked, he ate. He did things among us. That's pitching your tent. Everything you do with Elohim, and then you are pitching your tent with him. The book of John, again, Yochanan, chapter 14, verse 23 says, Yeshua answered him, saying, if anyone really loves me, he will keep, obey, and guard my word, my Torot, my teachings, my Torah. And my Father will love him. And we, Yeshua and Abba Father, will come to him. And most English Bibles say, make our stay, make our home, our abode, our special dwelling place. What Yeshua is saying is, we will come to him and we will pitch our tent with him. So again, Yeshua says, if anyone really loves me, he will keep my words, he will obey my words, he will guard my word, and my Father will love him, and we will come to him and pitch our tent with him. We will walk with him. We will live with him. Abba Father, Yeshua, the indwelling Ruach, they will reveal themselves to you. If you've read my book, Road to Paradise, I have the first half of the book is a bunch of experiences I've had. I think a lot of them are really funny because the Father was teaching me how to recognize him pitching his tent with me. And, it's not something that we are used to in the flesh. And it's a lot of fun learning how to dialogue with Elohim. Psalm 34, verse 7 reads, the angel of Yahweh. A lot of English versions, you'll see the angel of the Lord. That's a catchphrase that you see throughout the First Covenant, that is the Old Testament. And that is always a reference to Yeshua, the angel of Yahweh. Psalm 34:7 says the angel of Yahweh, and again, that's Yeshua, encamps around those who fear him. The word there for encamps is chen. And so it's saying the angel of Yahweh, chen, pitches his tent around those who fear him, those who revere and worship him with awe. And each of them he delivers. What does it mean that he delivers them? It means that he calls them out of the world. So again, Yeshua pitches his tent with those who fear him. And, it's not, here we go with the Western English stuff again. They don't fear him like, It's more like, I had an amazing relationship with my dad. He was the best friend I ever had. Boy, did he pitch his tent with me. He really shared who he was with his son. I never feared him. I feared his anger. He was a big man, and he did not mess around. But I never feared him because I knew how much he loved me. I certainly feared displeasing him. And this, I believe, is what the word is talking about. Yeshua pitches his tent around those who fear displeasing him because they love him so much. Those who revere and worship him with awe. And each one of them he calls out of the world. He draws them away from the things of the world and reveals in their hearts to them the love of his Father, Yahweh's Malchut, his kingdom. You know, the Western mindset is of the world. And the Western mindset, the way most of us were raised, is to believe that we learn in order to do. And I've never been that way. I think because I was raised with much of the Eastern mindset going on. But I see it all the time. A lot of people think, I can't do this. I have to go take classes first and learn how to do it first. That's a Western mindset. It's a mind of darkness. It's absolutely wrong. The mind of Yeshua, the Eastern mindset, is that we do in order to learn. And, you know, if I exampled that, I have a 1954 Chevy pickup truck. It's a street rod. It barks loud. I have a lot of fun driving it. When I first got it, I think it's, 12 or 13 years ago I got that truck. It's what I drive. I needed to rewire it. Now, I didn't know how to rewire a truck. And the first thing I did was I gutted the truck of all wires. There was no wiring. It was gone. It had no wiring. And I bought a kit that would service everything that truck needed in terms of wiring. And when I got the kit, I opened the box. There were 5 different coils of wires, you know, like, 20, 30 wires in each coil. And, one went towards the front of the truck. Another one went towards the back. When I opened it up, I looked at that. It was shocking. I mean, there was like so many hundreds of wires. And I didn't know what I was doing. But I never thought that, I better take a class or I better read a book. I didn't do any of that. I just looked at it, and the Ruach says, Alan, one wire at a time makes it very simple. And, each wire was also labeled, like every 6 inches, it would say left front headlight. So I said, okay, anyway, I learned how to wire my truck by wiring it. I didn't wire it by learning how to wire it. So this is an important thing to think about. People ask, how do we pitch our tent with Elohim? How does he pitch his tent with us? You find that out by doing it. And very appropriate that way, because the way that Elohim pitches his tent with you, And the way that he teaches you how to pitch your tent with him is going to be pretty much unlike the way he pitches his tent with anyone else and the way anyone else pitches their tent with him. It's very personal and it's very unique. So the mind of Yeshua, and Abba tells us in his word that we are to have the mind of Mashiach. Well, the mind of Mashiach says that if you want to learn how to do something, you do it. You learn by doing. You don't do by learning. The very first letter that Elohim chose to be the first of his entire word, and the first that begins the description of Yeshua, because Yeshua is the word, and the entire word of Yahweh is a description of his son Yeshua. The very first the very first letter is Beit. It's a picture of a house. It's a picture of family. That's where it starts. Elohim is Yahweh, your Abba, your Father. Yeshua, your Adon, your Master. And your Chavar, your friend. And the Ruach dwells in you as the voice and the instructional voice of your Father and your Adon, Yeshua. So, how do we pitch our tent with him? And how does he pitch his tent with us? It's all his doing. It's not your doing at all. And this is a tough one to deliver, because it matters what you do, in the sense of that you have to call out to him. You have to cry out to him. Oh, Abba, Father, reveal yourself to me. Reveal my Adon Yeshua to me. Reveal your voice, your indwelling Ruach to me. You doing that has its effect. However, it's nothing you do that has any effect, because, if someone gets in the flesh and they say, I'm going to work this, I'm going to make this happen, and they cry out to him in the flesh, trying to get him to do their will, he's going to be real quiet. He's not going to respond. It's all about your heart. It's all about crying out to him with a heart of sincerity, of really, in a humble way, in a fearful way, fearful in that you don't want to do anything that's displeasing to him, with a true desire to know your Creator. But then as your relationship with him grows, more and more and more, you will realize that it's always him that does anything. It's always him that changes your heart. You'll find yourself changing in ways that you are very sure you would never be able to do, because you can't explain it. Maybe there's things about yourself you always wanted to change and you tried and you never could. And then, he changed you and it's just changed. And you can't explain it. When he does things, it is unexplainable. You can't explain it. In fact, when he reveals himself to you in various ways, you can't describe it. For example, and I tell this story in my book, Road to Paradise, when I was in the hospital, I smelled the smell of the Father. And can't describe it. He did it in a very interesting way, because the only time I smelled that smell was when I left my hospital room and they would take me, wheel me around for tests or, to do crazy things. Every time they put me on a gurney and I left my room, that smell, and it was so strong. At first, it really set me back. I didn't know what to think. I kept asking everybody, what's that smell? They would just stare at me and not speak, because they didn't know what to think. They didn't know what I was talking about. They probably thought I was being wacky, from drugs or whatever, But I come back to my room. They would never smelled that smell in my room. And but the point is, I believe the smell of the Father permeates all of the Shamayim, heaven. And you can't describe it. It's impossible to describe. There is nothing to compare it to in this realm. And that's how it goes with the Father reveals himself to you in who knows what kind of ways. It's different with every person. He is different with every person because every person he created is different. But he'll do things and you'll experience things and you will not be able to define it. But how do you pitch your tent with him? By walking with him. In Yochanan, John, it said that Yeshua became flesh and he pitched his tent with us. He walked with us. He ate with us. He spoke and had conversations with us. This is what it means, pitching your tent with Elohim. It's to walk with him, to have conversations with him, to be with him. That is pitching your tent. And most important is to develop a prayer life. First thing every day. You make him number one on a list of one. You start your day with prayer. Just call out to him. Doesn't have to be a big deal prayer. Just every day lift your hands up. Praise him. Father, I come before you to worship you and to praise you and to thank you and to ask you to reveal yourself to me this day. To reveal your beloved Bain, your son, Yeshua, my Adon, to me this day. And please reveal your indwelling Ruach HaKodesh to me this day. In the name of Yeshua, I pray. Yahweh, my Elohim. Amen. And do that every single day as the first part of your day. Then, the other thing to be pitching your tent with him. And, again, asking him to reveal to you how he pitches his tent with you, how he walks with you, how he talks to you, how he helps you do things, like wire your 54 Chevy pickup truck. It was all fun, by the way, and I didn't make one mistake. to ask him to reveal that to you as well. The other thing is, in terms of pitching your tent with him, is you should have regular meetings with him. For me, I do this at the end of my day, the very end of my day. I come before him and, have a certain prayer that, honestly, the Ruach will develop your prayer for you and with you. I have that prayer. But at the end of my day, I always have a meeting with him. There's certain things going on in your life that maybe certain issues that you're concerned about, or certain goals you're trying to attain. And so, in your meeting time with him, you talk to him about these things. Talk to him about things you're concerned about. Talk to him about the things you're trying to achieve. And then, the next day you're having your meeting with him again, and you can kind of recap, Abba, I asked you, for help with this, and I saw, you did this, that, and the other thing. Please give me your counsel, give me your guidance, give me your direction on where we go with that next. You give him updates. You talk to him about this, then you saw certain developments, and you talk to him about, your thoughts about it, and pray and ask that he guides you and that you don't get in the way by trying to push things your own way. We want to go the way, his way, not our way. The way, tzad, picture of the path, the way. But I think that about explains it. If you have any questions, let me know in your comments below the video, and I'll do my best to answer them. Please understand that my subscribership is getting pretty big. I get a lot of emails, and I don't answer. I read every comment under my videos. I read every one of them. But I certainly don't have the time to answer every one of them. So, and really, most of all, if you have questions, ask Elohim. And that can be your way of learning how he answers, because he will answer. If you're not getting it, you haven't learned how to listen yet, start asking him to teach you how to listen. Anyway, this one's been a little bit different, my friends. It's just, a little time, kind of like personal time, like you came over my house and I'm just like chatting at you, I hope, as always, I hope and I pray that this has been and will be a beracha to you and yours. And Abba willing, I'll see you here next week. Until then, you know the drill. Shalom, my friends.
Now 2,000 years have gone by, it's another working day. Some would rather let it lie, but the question still remains.